My sister always needed to be the center of attention. Birthdays became personal photo shoots. Family dinners somehow turned into endless monologues about her marriage, her vacations, her house, her perfect life, and now, her pregnancy. But at her lavish baby shower, surrounded by giant gold balloons and pink roses, my 8-year-old daughter asked a single, innocent question that shattered her perfect illusion and exposed the family's biggest secret. Before we get into what she asked that completely silenced the room, I want to know, where are you watching this video from? Let me know in the comments below. And if you believe children should never carry the weight of adult cruelty, make sure to subscribe and share this story. I almost didn't attend the shower. Honestly, I had a gut feeling something would go wrong. My relationship with my sister had shifted drastically after my divorce 4 years earlier. Before that, we were close. We weren't perfect, but we were close enough to call each other after a bad day and laugh about old childhood memories. Then my marriage ended, and suddenly, I became an object of her pity, or maybe her judgment. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. My ex-husband left slowly. That's the only way I can explain it. First emotionally, then physically. Late nights at work turned into weekends away. Weekends away became absolute silence. And eventually, that silence turned into divorce papers. Our daughter was only 4 years old at the time. I still remember sitting on the kitchen floor after putting her to bed, staring at those legal documents, wondering how I was supposed to rebuild an entire life from nothing. But somehow, I did. It wasn't perfect. There were nights I cried in the shower because I couldn't afford for my daughter to hear me falling apart. There were birthdays where I bought smaller gifts because rent had to come first. There were mornings I smiled through pure exhaustion because children deserve stability, even when their parents feel completely broken. And through all of it, my sister slowly grew colder. It wasn't openly cruel at first, just subtle, passive-aggressive comments. You should really try dating again. A child needs a strong male influence. I just don't know how you do it all alone. It was the kind of statements people disguise as concern when they actually mean judgment. Still, I kept showing up because family is complicated, and because my daughter absolutely adored her aunt. That afternoon at the shower, everything felt manageable at first. Guests laughed while opening tiny baby clothes and guessing birth dates for games. My mother floated around proudly refilling drinks, while my sister soaked up the attention like sunlight. My daughter sat beside me quietly, drawing flowers on a paper placemat with colored pencils. Then, someone near the dessert table called out, "This baby is already going to be so spoiled." My sister laughed loudly, resting a hand on her stomach. She looked over at us, smirked, and said, "Well, at least my baby has a dad." The room changed instantly, not loudly, just emotionally. Conversations stopped halfway. A few women looked down awkwardly into their drinks. My mother froze near the cake table, and my daughter slowly stopped coloring. For a second, I genuinely couldn't breathe. Not because my sister had embarrassed me, but because she said it directly in front of my child. That was the part one couldn't forgive. Noticing the awkward silence, my sister shrugged dramatically. "What?" she said casually. "I'm just saying, kids deserve stable families." The phrase hit like a slap across the face. As if my daughter's life was somehow less valuable because her father chose to leave. I opened my mouth, ready to finally defend myself, but a small voice spoke first. "Aunt Rachel." My daughter looked up from the placemat with completely innocent eyes. My sister immediately softened her voice. "Yeah, sweetheart." And then, my daughter asked the question that shattered the entire room. "Then why does Uncle Ben sleep at Grandma's house now?" Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. My sister's smile vanished instantly because everyone in that room knew the truth. 3 months earlier, her husband had moved out after repeated arguments, and rumors about cheating had spread through the family. Officially, they were working through things. Unofficially, most people doubted the marriage would survive another year. But nobody talked about it openly, especially not around guests. My daughter, genuinely confused by everyone's sudden reaction, continued softly, "I saw him there last weekend." And Grandma was crying in the kitchen. My mother covered her mouth immediately. Across the room, one of my cousins suddenly became intensely interested in rearranging napkins. My sister's face turned bright red. You shouldn't repeat adult conversations. She snapped sharply. My daughter immediately shrank back against me. That reaction lit a protective fire inside my chest instantly. She's 8, I said, my voice dangerously calm. She wasn't trying to hurt you. But she embarrassed me, my sister yelled. I stared at her in disbelief. Embarrassed you, I repeated quietly. For years, I had stayed silent through her comments. I stayed silent through holidays where she subtly implied my daughter came from a broken home, and through lectures about relationships from someone who was secretly hiding a failing marriage. But hearing her blame my child broke something inside me permanently. You don't get to shame my daughter's life, I said quietly, while pretending yours is perfect. The room stayed painfully still. My daughter tugged lightly on my sleeve. Mom, she whispered nervously, tears filling her eyes. Did I do something bad? That question nearly broke my heart. Despite hearing such a cruel comment about her own situation, she was still worried about hurting someone else. I pulled her gently onto my lap. No, baby, I whispered softly. You just told the truth. But she said babies need dads, my daughter whispered shakily. I thought you said families can look different. God, children remember everything. I kissed the top of her head, fighting back my own tears. They can, I answered firmly. And ours is still a real family. Across the room, my sister suddenly looked so much smaller. Not just because her secret was out, but because for the first time, everyone else finally saw how cruel she had become. One of my older aunts quietly spoke up from near the window. A child with one loving parent is much better off than a child raised around constant judgment. Nobody argued, not even my mother. My sister just looked down at her untouched cake while the guests awkwardly avoided eye contact. Honestly, I didn't feel victorious. Just sad. Sad that insecurity had turned my sister into someone who needed to tear others down just to feel successful. A few minutes later, I gathered our coats. As I helped my daughter put on her shoes, she looked up at me anxiously. Are you mad at me? I smiled softly despite everything. No, I said honestly. I'm incredibly proud of you. She frowned slightly. Why? Because she was kind. Because she was honest. Because despite being abandoned by her father and mocked by her aunt, she still had a gentle heart. I squeezed her hand as we walked toward the parking lot together beneath the evening sunset. And in that moment, I realized something important. Children don't measure family by appearances, wedding rings, or perfect photos. They measure it by love. And no cruel comment in a decorated party room could ever take that away from us.